know you can't stop thinking about next year and how you're going to make it so much better than this year was. Essentially, you're ready for an upgrade, an elevated version of yourself, a true 2026 rebrand. And when we usually hear rebrand, we think about businesses, but rebrands are not just for businesses. Rebrands are for people who are choosing a new standard for their life. Welcome to the Fire Inside Podcast, the podcast for ambitious women who want to get it all done without burning out. I'm your host, Sade Kelly, high performance coach, wife, and mom, who is on a mission to help high achieving ambitious women just like you reclaim 10 or more hours back into their lives so they can grow their career and their business, make space for what matters most to them, and stay consistent at the habits that matter most without feeling overwhelmed or stressed. Now, a rebrand is not just about aesthetics, right? When we think about rebrands, at least for me, when I first hear the word rebrand, I think about a new logo, a new website, a new planner, or a color palette that I'm now going to follow, or maybe a new style. No, those things matter when it comes to a rebrand, but I would say those things are secondary. The primary thing you want to focus on when you're rebranding is your identity. A rebrand is truly an identity shift. It is deciding how you're going to show up, the woman you want to become, the habits you will embody, the boundaries you will no longer negotiate on, the standards you will now hold for yourself, the way you will spend your time, and the woman you're now going to embody every single day, the habits, the looks, the behaviors, how she shows up. All of that is a part of your rebrand. Now, a rebrand is essentially when your behaviors match your ambition. So we're going to talk about how to actually plan out your goals in a way that is going to help you figure out how your actions need to match your behavior and how you see yourself, because everything starts with your identity. The things you believe and think about yourself are always going to dictate the action you take day to day and make sure you receive the results you ultimately want to receive. The first step in planning your rebrand for 2026 is making a decision. All right. A lot of times people are looking for motivation. They're looking to feel good. They're looking for a mood to get them into the groove of what they want to embody for 2026. No, we're not doing that. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to sit down and think about what we want to embody for 2026. I want you to think about, in a single sentence or in a single word, what you want next year to look like. Are you now going to be a woman who craves structure and lives her life with a nice routine? Are you now going to be a woman who has a full life and you know exactly what a full life looks for you? You could describe it. Are you a woman who wants to now make sure she follows her commitments every single day? Is your word for the year amazing, discerning, disciplined, epic? Like, you get to pick what your word and what your embodying sentence is going to be. But the point of this is to make a decision and describe the identity that you're going to embody for the entire year. And I know it can sound a little jarring and scary, like, well, how do I figure out what I want for the entire year? Don't overthink it. I know many of us, if we're high achieving, ambitious women, we tend to overthink. We tend to want things to be perfect. That is why we're overthinking. I don't want you to make this perfect. I want you to just figure out what you want to embody. And I know when you ask yourself that, what do I want to embody for 2026? Just ask yourself the question. Something will come up in your head. And that thing that comes up is what you want to embody. So take that sentence, write it down. And if you need to make it more descriptive, go ahead and put it into ChatGPT or whatever AI that you want. If you want to like have some bounce some ideas off something and brainstorm further. But this all starts with making a decision. What will I embody for 2026? What is that one identity I need to decide on and commit to for the next 12 months? After you've decided on your identity, the second step is now to get clear on your commitments. Now, I purposely use the word commitments instead of goals because a lot of times when I say, what are your 2026 goals? People come up with like this long list of things that typically could happen, but most likely won't happen in just a year, because a lot of us overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 or 10 years. Just think about all the things you've accomplished in the last 10 years. It's probably a lot more than you accomplished in the last year, right? For many people, that's usually the case, unless you're one of my clients where you probably have accomplished more in 90 days than you have in 3 years, but I digress. But essentially for most people, they overestimate, right, what they can accomplish in a year. So instead of thinking of just about goals, I want you to think about commitments. Now, the difference between the two is a goal is an aim or desire you want to achieve. A commitment is something you're going to show up for and you are going to work at and make sure it happens in your life, right? So when we talk about rebranding, so your success is guaranteed, we're talking about what are you going to get committed to, right? This means you need to narrow it down because you can only have but so many commitments. When we think about commitments, we think about what is our capacity? What can we actually achieve next year? What is realistic? So I want you to think about, what are your top 3 commitments for the year? So these are like your overarching, huge, big goals, right? And when I say huge, big goals, I just mean your big goal for the next 12 months. What is something in your personal life that you're going to commit to? What is something in your professional life that you're going to commit to? What is something in your relationships that you're going to commit to, or your finances, or your business? Like, think about the top areas of your life that you are committed to for the next year. And what are those top commitments going to look like? That is going to help you to choose your goals. Because one thing I love working through with my clients is the Wheel of Life exercise. And the Wheel of Life exercise is essentially where you have different categories of your life, you review them, and you think about which one is scoring high and which ones are scoring pretty low or like mid-level. And then typically with my clients, what we do is we pick the areas of our lives that aren't doing so well, and we decide to use those as the commitment areas. So let's say like finances, social, and career are like scoring lower than we'd like. Those may be our top 3 commitments for the next year. Whereas maybe like other areas of life, like our business or our friendships or whatever else is doing well, then maybe we're not so focused on that because those are already doing good. So if you've never done the Wheel of Life exercise, I actually am going to leave a template so that you can figure out your 2026 plan in the show notes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll probably do a Notion template and a Google template because some people don't like Notion, but I really love Notion. That's where I plan for my year. I'll leave both of those templates in the show notes. You can go ahead and grab that for yourself, and I'll take you through the Wheel of Life exercise, how to actually select your identity and your commitments on a deeper level. So you're not just listening to a video and doing it, but you now have a template to use as a resource while you're going through it. So I want you to go ahead and write those commitments down. So now, so far, we have our identity chosen. We have our 3 top commitments. The next thing we're going to do is build systems that match what we actually want to achieve, right? So this is the part where people miss the plot. Okay. A lot of times people can plan out their goals. They're like, I know my word for the year. I know my sentence, my description, but how am I actually going to write out the steps to help me achieve those things? And how am I going to make it into a system? And all the system is, even though it may sound a little scary sometimes, it's just a process. It's just steps on a staircase. That's how I like to think about it. Here are the steps I need to take so I can get to the top of the staircase. And the top of the staircase is that commitment that you chose for the year. So your top goals or your commitments, they're the staircase, and you need to now pick the steps. That's the system. So let's say one of your top commitments was, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. Okay, now what are the steps to get you there? Do you need to drink a gallon of water every day? How are you going to track that you're doing that? Do you need to meal prep? Do you need to learn about nutrition and what you should be buying at stores? Do you need to hire a nutritionist? Because you know that's the fastest way is to get help or get mentorship, like a coach. Do you need to get a trainer or follow a workout plan or get an accountability buddy? Who will be that person for you? What will that look like? What type of workouts will you do for every single quarter or every single month of the year to make sure you're getting there? What benchmarks do you want to hit along the way so that by December 31st, 2026, you now know that you've not only lost 30 pounds, but you know how to maintain it. So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to these steps. When this is something more granular, like a business goal, let's say you want to close 10 clients or you want to have a 200K year, what will that look like? Do you need to be marketing a different way? Do you need to be selling a different way? Do you need to hire someone to help you with operations? What will that look like? Do you need to gain new skills because you're realizing like, hey, my reels ain't hitting like they used to hit, right? Like you have to think about what has been working for you and what has not been working for you and where you need to gain skills, as well as where you need to improve or who you need to hire or get help from or things you need to learn more about or look into in order to hit those top commitments. I had a client recently, we helped her figure out one of her top commitments. It was relationships. She wanted to have a better social life. She thought she wasn't so strong in her relationships, and she thought, okay, how can I make my relationship stronger? That is one of her top commitments. I want to have stronger relationships where I'm talking regular with people. I feel comfortable in my relationships. I feel like I know how to be more social. And it was something she never studied, right? Every single day she's studying like things she's interested in, like her real estate business or her career. She's seen so much success. She's had a great marriage, but she doesn't feel like she has strong friendships. She feels like She lost a little bit of that, as well as some relationships with her family. So we talked about, okay, what are the steps to get you there? Is it that you are planning intentional meetings with friends and family and fun things to do every single month, every single week? Are you connecting with them? Like, what does it look like? Are you going to events? How often are you going to events? What type of events do you want to go to? Like, if there's a commitment you are dedicated to, the process is going to be, what are the steps that are going to get you there? And not only what are the steps that are written down, but how are you going to track that you are actually doing those steps? Because these things have to be in your calendar. Not only do the actions have to be in your calendar, but how are you going to track these actions, and how are you going to make sure you're making progress? All needs to be in your calendar, because this has to be a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly process in order for you to see the results you want at the end of the year. Systems are always going to save you whenever your motivation dips or you're feeling discouraged. Having your systems in place are the things that get your habits ingrained and make you disciplined to keep showing up, even if you're showing up at 5% versus 25% versus 95%, depending on the day. And of course, the number one system I'm always going to recommend that you guys all have outside of the systems that you're going to commit to hit your top commitments for the year, you're always going to want to have a weekly planning system. You're going to want to have a structure around looking at your priorities for the week, brain dumping everything out, and getting it organized, prioritized in your calendar, and making sure you show up to it every single day. So a lot of times where I see people fall short is that they may have a nice structure set up in the beginning of the year, but then what they don't do is keep that structure up and take time to reflect and make sure that they're on track or not. And that is usually where people go wrong, because they don't have a weekly practice where they're sitting down and having a meeting with themselves to make sure they're staying on track. It's not enough to just create this amazing plan one time. You have to be doing this on a regular basis. The last step of this process is accountability. So far, you've identified your new identity. You now also know what your top commitments are for the year. You know you need a system for them, so you've written out all the steps in your processes to make sure these commitments happen. The last step is accountability. So I always recommend accountability, because with accountability, you are 95% more likely to make things happen. Without it, your percentage goes down to 12%. That is extremely low. We all need accountability as humans. We need someone outside of us helping us, right? But we can also have internal accountability as well. So internal accountability could look like a weekly review, a habit tracker, doing time audits, really taking time to actually create streaks, like in an app. Let's say you want to meditate more. Are you tracking your streak? Let's say you want to do your daily devotional. Are you tracking your streaks? Like, those type of internal things help us to hold ourselves accountable. But what's really the game changer is the external accountability, because a lot of us will lie to ourselves, right? Even though we're working on it and we want to show true to ourselves, that's like the whole point of discipline. But external looks like having a coach, being a part of a community or a mastermind, having an accountability partner that actually holds you accountable. A lot of times free accountability partners don't always work out. And I've heard that from clients where they're like, I've been doing it with my friend, but then she fell off, so I fell off, so now we both don't go to the gym. But if you have a trainer, you have a nutritionist, you have a high performance coach, you have a life coach, you have a business coach, whatever area you're looking to improve, if you have a coach, you're way more likely to have someone who shows up for you no matter what, because not only are you paying them, but they are trained in helping people be held accountable. So find your accountability partners for every commitment you have for next year. I want you to think about, okay, for my health goal, who is my accountability partner? For my business goal, who's my accountability partner? For my personal goals, who is my accountability partner? For my career goal, who is my accountability partner, right? Those commitments need to have accountability attached to them in order for you to see success. All of us need accountability, need someone to check in with us to make sure we're doing what we say we will. Not only can we do it for ourselves, but we always need external accountability. Now you know all the steps to rebrand for 2026. Now, as a bonus, I wanted to share this thought. I want you to shift your mindset when it comes to failure, because I already know you went through this whole episode and now you're thinking, well, what if I fail? What if things don't go to plan? Blah, 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 right? We all have been there. We spiral, we self-doubt, we think things are not going to work out the way we want them to work out, and that is all true. I want you to know that it's all true. Things could not work out how you want them to work out. That is a possibility. But if you do what I talked about in this video, 9 times out of 10, things are going to work out in the way you want. It may not work out in the next 12 months, but it will eventually work out. And that's something I want you to have in mind when you're planning for the year. It is amazing to create the best vision board, to have your commitments written out, have your identity written out, have your processes all written out, ready to go. You're taking the actions to do them. And then maybe things don't go exactly to plan. And that is why I want you to think about things on a quarterly basis as well. So one thing I love to do is I plan for the entire year, but then I only plan like super detailed for Q1. So let's say for the entire year, I know the commitments that I have for the next 12 months. Then what I do is I write out what I need to do in Q1, January through March, to make sure I'm on track for the year. And then I just focus on those 3 months. Because a lot can happen in 3 months that shifts your perspective on the rest of the year. So sometimes you get to February or you get to March and you look at what you have for the year and you go, that's not realistic. Or certain things happen now already in this year and I'm gonna need to shift this. Or I'm not feeling like this anymore. I don't actually have the capacity I thought I would have. I need to move this. That is why it is so important to look at your goals on a quarterly basis. That's also why I love the 12-week year concept, because when we're thinking about things in a 12-week span, we can figure out how we can maneuver and realign things and adapt and make things better for the next quarter. So a lot of times what I see people do is they'll have a yearly goal. Maybe they don't get there by like February, March, and then they're like, all right, let me halt on that and create a new goal. No, if you can, unless you have to change the goal, try to keep the same goal until you achieve it. So if you haven't achieved losing the first 5 pounds, don't worry about losing the 30 by the end of the year, right? Just focus on the next 5 that you're trying to lose that you didn't lose in Q1, and try to lose that in Q2. And then maybe you increase the goal or you decrease the goal based on your capacity for the next quarter. So a lot of this is having commitments for the entire year, but being adaptable and being able to move and groove as you need each quarter, so you can give yourself grace. And that is the part where I see a lot of people are scared. They're scared when they're not on track by like February, which honestly, by February 1st, 80% of people, according to statistics, 80% of people give up on their goals, which is like a lot of people, right? That's a lot of people who are just like, forget it. It's February 1st. I haven't gotten it. I had the rah-rah excitement on January 3rd, and now I lost it. I don't want you to be one of those people. If you learn how to adapt and adjust things as you go, you will not be one of those people, okay? So go ahead and just do that. Make sure you're planning for the quarter. And in the template that I'm going to share in the show notes, I'm going to be showing you how to actually plan for the quarter and then take your insights from the quarter and plan for the next quarter. Of course, you're doing that through the lens of what you want for the year, but you're taking it quarter by quarter to make sure it's measurable, achievable, and it's something you're able to actually take action on. Another thing I want you to think about is that if you knew you had to fail 15 times before you could succeed one time, wouldn't you try to fail fast? So fail fast. Be okay with making mistakes. Be okay with just putting yourself out there. Be okay with realizing that failure is not your identity, even if you fail 20 times. Failure is just data. It is giving you more information. It is showing you what direction you need to go in. So I like to think about failure in that way, because really early on in my career, I had to reframe how I thought about uncomfortable moments, because the more uncomfortable I got, the more I was like, this isn't for me. Why do I feel so uncomfortable? Why do things not feel aligned? And then I realized, no, actually, in all that uncomfortableness and all those mistakes and all that time where I was embarrassed, right? Those are the moments that taught me so much about myself. Those are the moments that shaped me into who I am today. Those are the reasons why I'm so bold enough to have my own business, to be doing this for how many years I've been doing it, for me bold enough to get on YouTube and give advice like this to people. I may not have it all correct, right? I can even honestly say that 2025 didn't pan out the way I thought it would pan out, but I learned so much about the level of support that I actually do have, the level of capacity that I actually do have, what it takes to be a stay-at-home mom and a work-from-home mom, right? There are so many nuances I had never experienced firsthand for myself, even though I've helped clients through. It's always different when you have it for yourself, right? There are coaches I had to stop working with. There are coaches I had wanted to start working with, right? There were people in my life I had to let go of. There are people in my life I had to let in. So all those different things shaped me in this year, and I'm really grateful for it, because I know it's going to make 2026 even stronger. And I think we all have to just take the time to build up that resilience and use it to create momentum for the next year. So I hope this episode was super helpful for you, that you now know how to plan and rebrand for 2026 to make it your best year yet. If you would like one-on-one support from me in creating your 2026 rebrand, creating the correct structure, figuring out the right word for you, knowing how to tailor things to your personality and productivity patterns and how you like to go about life and what your actual desires are, then go ahead and book a consultation call with me. The link is always in the show notes, and I would love to help you through that one-on-one. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share with at least 5 friends, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. I hope that you have the best 2026, and I hope that this episode helps you to plan it in a really, really diligent way where you feel confident that your success is guaranteed, because it is.